We're kicking off today with Drew McIntyre, who has signed a new deal with WWE which will keep him around for years to come, putting to bed any rumors of a move to another company. According to recent reports, negotiations for McIntyre's contract renewal began in March and concluded after extensive discussions in which the two sides went back and forth. New reports have confirmed that McIntyre's new deal was only signed days ago, dispelling earlier suggestions from The Rock's Instagram post hinting at an earlier agreement. McIntyre's new deal spans multiple years, with both parts said to be very happy, and Dave Meltzer reports that this is a 3-year deal, extending until 2027. While details regarding the Scottish Warrior's potential earnings hover around $4 million annually, this figure remains unconfirmed and would potentially be pushed as the top WWE guy. It's fitting that The Rock was the one to share the news of Drew re-signing with WWE, as in a video from 2019, the final boss spoke about McIntyre as a next top guy in the company. On Twitter, McIntyre shared the clip of The Rock's kind words, and in borrowing a line from the Great One, said it's all about the long game. McIntyre will compete in WWE for years to come, but not right now, as the Wrestling Observer Daily reports that Drew has been pulled from house shows due to a hyperextended elbow. McIntyre suffered the injury at WrestleMania, and while he won't be at live events, he will still be making TV appearances, but the date of his next match remains unclear. On this week's Raw, McIntyre came out to the stage at the end of the Round 3 draft picks, where he was finally drafted to Raw, the same brand as CM Punk. McIntyre berated his arch-rival and revealed that his sneak attack at WrestleMania 40 not only caused him to lose the World Heavyweight title, but also fractured his elbow. Drew proclaimed that he wouldn't sit at home like Punk due to his injury, which led to Punk's music playing, but McIntyre initially thought it was just a ruse. That was before Punk appeared in the Skybox, and the sight of the best in the world enraged Drew, who stormed off, possibly in pursuit of the former WWE champion. As Drew McIntyre furiously checked out the Skyboxes, he finally found the one formerly inhabited by CM Punk, only to watch as the straight-edge superstar made his way to the ring. Punk had a scathing promo for McIntyre, which included the Chicago-made star disrespectfully turning his back on Drew, as if to say he was not even worth his attention. It was not overly long, did not overstay its welcome, and continued a story that is fixing to become the top one on Monday nights moving forward as both men get closer to recovery. But what did you make of all this? Are you pleased with McIntyre being re-signed with WWE? And what do you want to see in his feud with CM Punk? Sound off in the comments. Raw opened with new Women's World Champion Becky Lynch kicking off the show by addressing her victory last week before Liv Morgan appeared and took credit for Lynch's win. Morgan even said that the man owed her one, while also reminding Lynch that she is on a revenge tour and wouldn't stop until she had everything she wanted. A verbal back and forth led to Nia Jax coming out and vowing to take out either Lynch or Morgan on her way to SmackDown, and Michael Cole suggested that Adam Pearce would make a match. This was a fine way to kick off Raw, with 3 women who have history and sharing the ring one last time en route to a match that could have long-reaching effects on the Raw women's roster. Earlier this month, Rhea Ripley vacated the Women's World title due to an injury suffered at the hands of Liv Morgan, who attacked the Australian superstar backstage. In addition to Ripley, her on-screen beau, Dominik Mysterio, is also out of action, but it appears Dirty Dom may have something of a wandering eye. On last week's Raw, Dominik Mysterio confronted Liv Morgan backstage on Raw right before she competed in the Women's Battle Royal for the vacant title. On this week's show, however, Morgan was seen leaving a locker room during Kathy Kelly's interview with Jey Uso, and seconds later, Dominik was also seen exiting the same room. Morgan only recently returned from an injury of her own and has been embarking on a revenge tour, but this hasn't exactly gone to plan for the former SmackDown Women's Champion. Morgan came up second in the Women's Royal Rumble, came up short in the Elimination Chamber, and was also the runner-up in last week's Women's World Title Battle Royal. Perhaps stealing Ripley's man is how Liv can get revenge on the Eradicator, as Morgan was written off TV last year with an attack by her former tag team partner. Perhaps Ripley approached Dominik last week to confess her feelings for him, and whether she has any feelings for him or not, her hatred for Ripley could have spawned this act. With Mommy out of action, it seems that Dominik is possibly choosing to move on with the woman who took out Rhea Ripley, and we'll have to see what happens next with this storyline. Do you think Dominik Mysterio is planning a new secret alliance with Liv Morgan? And if so, how will Rhea Ripley respond? Sound off in the comments. As a result of the opening segment, Liv Morgan battled Nia Jax while Tiffany Stratton watched on with great interest at ringside. It was abundantly clear that the crowd was not entirely sure of who they were supposed to be cheering in this one based on the reaction for the match. While Morgan has been cheered in the past, her new character has changed fan perception, especially as fans were reminded that it was Liv who took out Rhea Ripley. Late in the match, Naomi attacked Stratton, their fight spilling over the guardrail and into the ringside area, and Morgan capitalized on the distraction by hitting Oblivion on Jax for the win. This was a great way to give Morgan a quality win over a heel competitor who fans buy into, while the brawl between Naomi and Stratton shined a light on Backlash's women's title match. Adding Jax to the title picture on Friday nights that already includes Bayley, Naomi, and Tiffany Stratton strengthens that division and bodes well for the blue brand. During WWE WrestleMania 40 Sunday, Stephanie McMahon made an unexpected appearance, sparking speculation among fans about her future involvement with WWE. During her on-stage promo, McMahon reflected on her long-standing connection with WrestleMania and acknowledged the beginning of a new era under her husband Triple H. Now, Stephanie has once again appeared on WWE TV as she was on Raw to announce the first-round draft picks of Night 2 of this year's draft. With Stephanie McMahon's recent surprise appearances, it does raise questions about her potential future involvement with WWE, at least on screen. Right now, though, it seems more like a gesture of support for WWE's new era rather than an official return, as she stepped down from all roles with WWE in January of last year. We'll have to wait and see what unfolds next, and if she'll be coming back for a full-fledged role at WWE, and what have you made to her return? Let us know down below. Of course, the biggest news of last night's Raw was the draft picks, and after the somewhat disappointing run on SmackDown, fans were ready for something big. In the first round, Imperium, without Giovanni Vinci, was the #1 pick for Raw, and the Red Brand also chose Damage Control, while SmackDown retained Jade Cargill and Kevin Owens. Round 2 saw CM Punk and Braun Strowman remain on Raw, while SmackDown stuck with the Pride and Tiffany Stratton. In Round 3, Raw was able to snatch up the LWO and also drafted Drew McIntyre, while SmackDown picked Legado del Fantasma and Shinsuke Nakamura. Round 4 saw the Judgment Day and NXT's own Ilya Dragunov picked up by Raw, while SmackDown went with Naomi and, much to the delight of Adam Pearce, Chelsea Green and Piper Niven. Round 5 saw SmackDown retain Pretty Deadly and bring in Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell, while Raw went with the New Day and former NXT Women's Champion Lyra Valkyria. In the final round of the TV draft, Raw snatched up the Final Testament and retained Bronson Reed, while SmackDown scored DIY and called up Blair Davenport from NXT. At WrestleMania 40, Becky Lynch and Rhea Ripley were tasked with opening the show with the Women's World title on the line, and neither held back in Philadelphia. In the end, it was Ripley who stood tall with the gold, and the mommy of the Judgment Day busted out some unique offense to get the advantage over the man. In a previously unseen angle from their match, Ripley can be seen biting the foot of Lynch while holding Becky in a submission hold, giving the then-champion an added advantage. Ironically, Lynch has since redeemed her WrestleMania loss by winning the title vacated by Ripley, and if a rematch happens, perhaps the man should invest in some steel-capped boots. More from Raw, which saw Logan Paul and iShow Speed host the second round of the night's drafts, where, as we've come to expect this year, no superstars moves to a different brand. After that, the pair were confronted by Jey Uso, whom he began trash-talking, and it wasn't long before Finn Balor and JD McDonough made their way out too. After using Patrick Mahomes' Super Bowl rings and accidentally hitting JD McDonough, he struck Jey Uso, but it was Braun Strowman who made his return after close to a year to save main event Jey. Strowman was dominant in taking out his adversaries and even had a momentary confrontation with Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. Triple H and WWE Creative used Paul and Mahomes' star power to highlight Judgment Day, Uso, and Strowman as top acts on Monday nights in a segment that maximized its minutes. This was all about enhancing the stars already in place, and positioning Mahomes as the heel alongside Paul was a clever choice given his past comments. The Super Bowl MVP has expressed a willingness to be a villain of the NFL if that's what the fans need, but the biggest winner of this segment was the returning Strowman. It's going to be a big comeback for Strowman, who, as we said, has been out for some time, but what could he do now that he's back? With the King of the Ring tournament set to start soon, Strowman could have the throne and crown in his sights, and would give him an immediate direction and reason to be in matches. Gunther and Drew McIntyre have already declared themselves for the tournament, while Xavier Woods hopes to defend the crown he won 3 years ago. The tournament finals will emanate from Saudi Arabia, a place that the greatest Royal Rumble winner has a history with, as it was in the nation that he also faced Tyson Fury. Competing in the tournament and making it to the finals would be a possibility for Strowman, but he may have other plans than a singles run for the crown. Given how his return played out, it's possible Strowman could enter a tag team with Jey Uso, especially if Jey is unsuccessful in his championship match with Damian Priest at Backlash. Strowman was teaming with Ricochet before his injury and is a former tag champion, and with the growing division on both brands, some singles stars could be used for tag team action. Braun is also a former Universal Champion and hasn't held a major singles title in years, a fact that the monster among men could be looking to change soon enough. Jey Uso may have the first shot at Damian Priest, but with Braun helping Jey on Raw, perhaps he could factor into the title picture in the next few months. Now that he's back on WWE TV, Strowman should be looking for gold, and that could put him on track to a collision with Damian Priest soon enough. But what direction do you want to see Strowman go in now that he's back? Let us know in the comments down below. More draft news as after the TV draft, WWE hosted its supplemental draft following Raw, which saw Apollo Crews, Giovanni Vinci, and Tegan Nox all chosen by SmackDown. Raw, meanwhile, picked the Diamond Mine, Kaden Carter and Katana Chance, Natalya, New Catch Republic, and Odyssey Jones, and called up Dijak from NXT. It'll be interesting to see what the superstars make of their brands in the weeks to come, and what have you made of the 2024 WWE Draft? Raw also saw another mysterious glitch appear, this time during the match between Gunther and Xavier Woods, and featured a deserted road visible from the point of view of someone driving. Following that, a QR code appeared later in the night that continued from the glitch shown with the aforementioned driver reaching his destination, a deserted house. As the camera approaches the door of the house, the screen glitches with the message, "The door is open, do you want to meet him?" followed by the message, "Drown in his glory." It is believed that these glitches and videos are linked to Bo Dallas, who is expected to return soon enough as the Uncle Howdy character introduced in 2022. It's been rumored that Howdy will not be coming alone, and if this latest video is a sign, it seems Uncle Howdy is ready to reach his destination back to WWE programming. It was on last week's AEW Dynamite that Jack Perry and the Elite attacked Tony Khan, and now the former FTW champion is officially a member of the faction. On AEW's roster's website, Perry is officially listed as a member of the Elite, and we have to imagine what he'll do next alongside the Young Bucks and Kazuchika Okada. Back to Raw, and with both Xavier Woods and Gunther declaring for the King of the Ring tournament last week, the two faced off on this week's Raw, albeit without any tournament spots on the line. Woods proved resilient and tough, absorbing the punishing blows dealt him by the Austrian, but his late match comeback was cut off with a chop by Gunther. The ring general applied a Boston Crab, but despite Kofi Kingston teasing to throw in the towel, Woods was insistent that he could fight his way out of the submission. Ultimately, though, Woods could not hold on and tapped out, and this was a good match with some strong character work from the heel, who mimicked taking the crown from the fallen king. The more we get that out of him, the greater his star will inevitably shine in this company, and one has to consider Gunther a favorite to be the next King of the Ring. Speaking on Raw Talk, Gunther reflected on what happened last week, which saw Ludwig Kaiser attack Giovanni Vinci, seemingly to the approval of the Imperium leader. Gunther explained that he doesn't look at the past but is focused on being king, seemingly revealing that Vinci had been kicked out of Imperium. In the supplemental draft, Vinci was drafted over to SmackDown, and Gunther is ready to move forward without Giovanni, but with Ludwig Kaiser still by his side. WrestleMania 40 marked the end of Gunther's historic reign as WWE's Intercontinental Champion, and his 666-day reign shattered several records. Not only was it the longest reign of any IC champion, but it's the most amount of days anyone has held the titles collectively, and this historic reign was something of a surprise. In a recent interview on the Gorilla position, Daring General reflected on his unprecedented championship run and explained how he was not aware of WWE's plans for his run. He said, "It was week by week or match by match, and I never got told I was going to hold it for the longest time ever. I don't know if that was initially the plan. When I became the Intercontinental Champion, it was still under Vince. It wasn't under Triple H. He came in a little bit later and took over. The conversation never really happened. I think over time and how I carried myself as NXT UK champion before, I think I'm the kind of wrestler that is really made for being a champion, if that makes sense. I'm going to represent it well. For 1 year of his title run, Gunther reigned as champion while Vince McMahon was in charge, and on the podcast, the Austrian admitted he wasn't a fan of the ex-CEO. Gunther said that McMahon's handling of WWE angles was why he didn't want to go to the US for years, as he preferred being a part of WWE NXT UK and working under other names. Now Gunther is in the US and is doing very well on the main roster, and said that Triple H has always seen something in him, and he's glad things worked out in the end. McMahon is gone from WWE and isn't expected to return, while Gunther's prospects look bright, with many seeing him as a future world champion. Whether that would have happened under McMahon's watch, we'll never know, but their ring general sure is grateful to have Triple H overseeing his future instead. But what do you make to Gunther's comments on Vince McMahon, and where do you see his career going next? Let us know in the comments section down below. During a recent appearance for the NFL Draft, Tony Khan called AEW the Pepsi of wrestling and blasted WWE as the Harvey Weinstein of the industry in a line that has sparked some controversy. While some agree with the comment, especially given the Vince McMahon allegations, others found it wrong for Khan to use Weinstein's horrific acts for fodder against WWE, but not McMahon. Speaking on Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian Alvarez reported that WWE personnel unsurprisingly found the line absurd, but so did many within AEW. Those AEW names disagreed with Khan's sweeping generalization of WWE as an evil company, especially as many in AEW have worked for WWE or have close friends or partners there. Alvarez emphasized that while McMahon may not be free from criticism, labeling the entire company as evil is overly simplistic and inaccurate. Eric Bischoff has also criticized the line, but what do you think of Khan's sweeping statement about WWE? Was it unfair and tasteless? Or is this all part of the game? Let us know in the comments. Backstage at Raw, Rey Mysterio cut a promo on Carlito's betrayal of the LWO from last Friday, but it wasn't long before he was interrupted by his son. A verbal exchange was had, with the father getting the best of his son on this occasion, leaving the injured Dirty Dom frustrated. Raw also saw Chad Gable talk backstage with The Miz and R-Truth as Miz tried to explain to his tag team partner that the WWE draft is not the same as the NFL draft. After the World Tag Team Champions left, Sami Zayn blindsided Gable with a haluva kick that knocked out the Olympian in what was a proactive move by the Intercontinental Champion. The assault was seemingly Sami's way to make sure Gable didn't get involved during his title defense against Bronson Reed, which never seemed like it got out of neutral. The match ended with Gable breaking up a pinfall attempt by Zayn and then assaulting the champion before Chad was laid out by an angry Bronson Reed. Reed has seen his championship aspirations evaporate before his eyes thanks to Gable, and a title picture with these three only heightens the importance of the Intercontinental title. Unfortunately for Reed, he'll likely be the one eating the pin to prevent WWE from having to burn through Zayn vs. Gable right away, as this is a match WWE is keeping until the right time. Gable was especially harsh to his Alpha Academy stablemates during a recent episode of Raw, and that played in Maxxine Dupri's mind on this week's Raw. Before her match with Candice LeRae, Maxxine was looking pleased backstage, and when questioned, she told Chad she was happy with her performance in last week's Battle Royal. That match saw Dupri eliminate LeRae and Indy Hartwell, but Chad was incensed that Maxxine was celebrating what was ultimately a loss for her in the ring. With another browbeating by Gable, Maxxine started her match with Candice LeRae with intensity and attempted Chad's ankle lock in the middle of the ring. She only broke the hold after Indy Hartwell attacked Ivy Nile at ringside, and with this distraction, LeRae got the win with her signature move, the Wicked Stepmother. Another loss for Maxxine will be difficult for her, especially as she'll no doubt have to face Gable once again, as the Olympian refuses to allow anything but perfection into the Alpha Academy. The Miz and R-Truth defended the World Tag Team Championship against Alpha Academy's Otis and Akira Tozawa in the penultimate match of the night. This was a spring of a match that saw the champions weather the offense of Otis late into the match, as the Centipede was no match for the truth-crushing finale that scored the champs the win. More important than the match itself was what the loss will mean for Otis and Tozawa, as Gable will undoubtedly look to push them harder, faster, and further than they ever have been. This is not a Gable just happy to be in the discussion for a title shot, but one that will demand the absolute best of his Alpha Academy trainees. Whether that attitude ultimately works with Otis, though, remains to be seen. With the intensity he's been showing as of late, some have compared Chad Gable to Kurt Angle, a comparison that has been made several times between the two Olympians. On his Kurt Angle Show podcast, the WWE Hall of Famer discussed Gable and was asked if he'd been interested in managing Chad now that he's a heel. He said, "They never actually considered that heel manager, at least with Chad. For some reason, they never decided to do another Team Angle or me team up with Alpha Academy. I think that would be a great idea. If I were going to do it, it has to be worth it to me." Gable is rumored to soon be working with the Creeds in what'll be a trio of athletically gifted superstars. But will Kurt Angle join them? Time will tell. On Raw, JD McDonough flashed one of the most badly made black eyes in the history of WWE, which is quite the statement given the long history in the company. Despite this, McDonough was in the main event 6-man tag team match, which gave Jey Uso one last chance to send a message to Damian Priest ahead of their match at Backlash. Jey teamed with Andrade and Ricochet to defeat the World Heavyweight Champion, McDonough, and Finn Balor, and this was no better or worse than a typical high-energy 6-man tag main event. It did establish Uso as a superstar with momentum, which was an interesting choice, as the argument could be made that Jey already had the momentum on his side going into Backlash. WWE Creative may have done the world champion a disservice, and Triple H and co are hoping that a win for Priest this Sunday will establish him as a valid champion. That'll hinge on whether he gets that win on his own, and with WWE rebuilding its main event scene on Raw, Jey and the Judgment Day have been incredibly over. Whether they can fill the spot held by Seth Rollins, Cody Rhodes, and others, though, is another question. What if anyone can make it work? It's Triple H and his creative allies. And we're ending with WrestleMania 41, as The Undertaker recently said on his podcast that the show will come to Las Vegas, but an announcement has yet to happen. In the latest report, it's noted that negotiations with Las Vegas are still ongoing, which is why an announcement has been delayed, but that Minneapolis has thrown its hat in the ring. With that said, the odds of Minneapolis hosting the show seem to be dwindling, as right now, all signs point to WrestleMania 41 coming to Sin City.